Hey yo, what's up? You know who it is. It's the one and only triple the G.O.D. And of course, welcome back to your favorite YouTube show. And that of course being Diver Game Horror. How everybody doing today? Yo, previously on Diver Game Horror, we celebrated 5 years of domination and being the best in the business, existence, the world, universe, and, dimension. Because I'm the best at what I do. I sat up here thinking, like, what do I do to celebrate 5 years of dominance? Well, how about I take a look at the thesis and antithesis of the first game I ever talked about and do an opus about my favorite Street Fighter series, and that being Street Fighter EX. And today we are taking a look at Street Fighter EX Plus Alpha for the PS1. Now, I do want to say this before we get into it. I see it now, okay, everybody? Regardless of what I have said, I still feel the same about this game, that it is an awesome Street Fighter game, but taking my honest look at this game is that I understand why people feel the way they do, and we will get all into my feelings later. But for now, how about we review Street Fighter EX Plus Alpha for PS1, because that is what we're here for, and we have plenty of time to talk about all of my revelations and mind-blowing thoughts about Street Fighter. Anywho, let's get to work. Arcade mode. Arcade mode is a string of 10 fights that ends with Bison. Now, there are some hidden bosses you can fight in their scene if you meet the requirements, and there are also some options in the option mode that actually affect how arcade mode actually works and functions, and when we get to option mode, I will talk about all of that, so just remind me to do that. Versus mode. Versus mode actually functions as either a versus CPU mode if you only have one controller plugged in, or as a versus 2-player mode if you have 2 controllers plugged in, Is that, because you know how I love a versus CPU mode, is that it does serve the function of a versus CPU mode very well. You also get the option to mess with handicaps if you are playing against somebody, or if you want to give yourself a handicap while trying to fight the computer, that you do have these options. Team Battle Mode. Team Battle Mode is a 5-on-5 affair that one side picks 5 characters, the other side picks 5 characters. The first person to knock out 5 characters on one side will win the fight. And that's just what it is. Time Attack Mode. We're actually going to go into this because I actually want to show you guys how Time Attack Mode works. Is that you get a couple of course selections. Is that you get A, B, and then C. This is important because these are characters that were added to Street Fighter EX Plus in the arcade, and then you get to fight the boss version of Bison, Garuda, and Akuma as much as you want to. So, I just wanted to just show you that this is what Time Attack Mode was all about. So, let's just back out of here. Let's just back out of here and back to it. Survival Mode. You pick a character, you get 1 life bar, and once you knocked out, it's over. There are also some secret stuff, and we'll get into that into a minute, about some additional stuff that you can do in survival mode. So, just remind me to get into that too. Practice mode is that, of course, you get training mode. And we have talked in length about this. I wrote in length about this. You guys remember that? Expert mode, better known as the trial mode, is that this is what I really got to really understand about my feelings about why people feel the way they do. Is that Street Fighter EX is a game that expects a lot of you. It's not Street Fighter that's trying to bring you in. That Street Fighter EX, I have to assume, when Akira Nishitani sat down and was like, I want to do Street Fighter EX, is that this was a game made for people who play Street Fighter. And because this isn't a game that has no low execution barrier, that this game expects you to understand Street Fighter EX at a high level and play it as such. It expects you to know about cross-ups. It expects you to know about canceling. It expects you to learn to know about negative edges. It expects you to know about proper link timing and all of that stuff. And expert mode really brings that out, because you have to understand how each and every character work, how their moves work, how the hit properties and hit boxes work. It's a crazy mess, but you do really learn a lot about it. And if you so happen to learn about it and be expert mode with all 19 characters that you can play with, you unlock a version of the barrel game from Street Fighter 2. It functions a whole lot differently than the bonus game from Street Fighter 2, and it's like all the barrels come out in a fixed motion. You can actually find a fact that tells you how to get a perfect in this mode. So, they bring this mode back in Street Fighter EX2 Plus, and they add some stuff to it. And when we get to talking about Street Fighter EX2 Plus, we'll do that. And we'll get back. Oh, watch mode. This is CPU on CPU violence. is that it reminds me kind of sort of Tekken 1, because if you've ever played Tekken 1 before, is that you can press start to like adjust like the different camera angles and stuff. And in watch mode in this game you get, let me see, 2, 4, 6, 7, 9 different cameras, I think. Like you get 2 versions of the punch, like the punch out camera, which is really cool. So so you can always mess around with that if you just want to sit back and watch and chill and do that. And option mode. We actually gonna talk about this in depth to a degree, because the only major thing I really want to talk about is option plus mode. Now, option plus mode is unlocked when you beat 220 missions in expert mode. And what this does is it opens this mode, and the only thing that you really need to be concerned with for right now is the enemy mode. Is that there are 2 different ones. There are alpha, which is set to by default, and plus mode, which reflects how Street Fighter EX Plus worked in the arcade. And the only major differences between the two is that in plus mode is the only mode where you can fight Akuma as a secret boss, just like you would in Super Turbo. Same thing happens if you make it all the way there without losing a round. Akuma will appear, he will beat the shit out of Bison, then you will fight him, and he does like 5 times normal damage or something. It's very weird. You can actually also fight Garada and in plus mode and alpha mode, but how you fight Garada changes, and I don't remember the exact requirements offhand, but I think in plus mode you have to do a level 3 super combo finish. That means doing a super combo, then canceling it and canceling one more time, and the second cancel being the super combo that kills the opponent. So, it's really crazy. And the other major thing is that between the differences between alpha and plus mode is that because 2 characters that they added to the roster, and I don't believe I'm blowing myself on this now, is that they added Sakura and Dawson to the roster. And you can only fight them in arcade mode is if you have it set to alpha mode. If you have it set to plus mode, you will never see them. You will never see them in the fighter ladder. So, there's that. Now, initially, when you unlock game option plus, is that enemy is the only thing you can mess with. Once you beat Akuma in plus mode, it unlocks all of these training options for some reason or another. Is that these are options that will be readily available in Street Fighter EX2 Plus, but you get training partner mode. Is that this is a mode that you can only mess with if you have 2 controllers plugged in. Of course, you can turn your super combo gauge to infinity. Turning the super cancel limit off means that you can cancel the same super move into the same super move. So you can do Shoryu Rapper into Shoryu Rapper into Shoryu Rapper all day if you so choose to do so. Okay, Dama mode is that it gives the game a weird juggle mode. Is that this is an option that is available in all three home console training mode. Is that what it does? Is that it lets you do juggle combos in states where you're not supposed to be able to. So, for example, if Akuma was to sweep his opponent and then do a Metsu Gushoryu, it would actually hit instead of completely whipping. So, that's what that is. So, it's like once you unlock this, you can use this to play around in training mode with. And the tips option, it actually tells you different things, but we're not going to get into that because once you play the game, which is the point of this review, unlock it for yourself, and then you can read all the stuff that it tells you. Mainly what it tells you about a couple of different moves. It tells you about a couple of different hidden moves. It tells you how to actually unlock the barrel bonus game. And it actually explains a little bit, not in depth at all, about how enemy mode works for arcade mode. So, that's what that is. And, we'll skip all of this. There's nothing else that you really need to know about here. So I guess we can get to work. Ha! Have I told you how much I love this character select music? I'm letting you know that now. Welcome to the roster of Street Fighter EX Plus Alpha. How about I introduce all of these people to you? And we'll skip Ryu and we'll come back to him. That's Geese. You know him. That's Crackerjack. He's technically Balrog. That's Hokuto. She has some issues she's dealing with right now. Because this is Street Fighter Alpha, because the guy got that scar on him. And, Ryu, he's dealing with some stuff too. Ken, he just wants to fight his best friend again. Chun-Li, he's trying to hunt down Bison. Dr. Dark is pissed at Guile because Rolento killed his whole clique. That's the thing. You know, Gao, he's still trying to find Charlie. You know, that just seems to be his running thing. Skullomania, you know, he's just a guy that's happy to wear a skull suit running around pretending to be a superhero. His whole backstory changes in Street Fighter EX2 for whatever reason. You'd have to ask Arca about that. Blair Dame. Blair Dame, I think, is some rich girl who's pretending to be a princess or actually is a princess. I'm not sure, but here's the one thing I do know. We'll never see her again in a Street Fighter EX game. The same for Alan Schneider, who's technically a Shoto without a hurricane kick, but gets a move called the Justice Fist instead. There's Dawson, one of the new characters to Street Fighter EX Plus Alpha. He works pretty much the same as he does in other games, but I really think that, now actually because I was going to sit up here and say that this was the first game you could control his limbs, I think that was Super Turbo, was the game that you could control his limbs depending on what direction you hold when you press the button. Sakura Kasagano, we all know her. She has web headings for that guy. Because that this is a game that takes the place of Street Fighter Alpha in canon, if it actually was canon, I'm not really sure what's really going on or why Sakura's here. Is that she's one of the characters that doesn't return at all in any version of Street Fighter EX2, but comes back in Street Fighter EX3. Kairi, that girl's brother, he's having some issues too. Mainly with the Satsui Noa though, and we will talk a little bit more about that a couple of characters from now. But just understand, Kairi is technically, if you really want to think about it, is the game's main character because of what's going on, because a lot of the actual story that's happening revolves around him and Kairi and Hokuto and their whole family and the beef they got going on. Daryl Meister, he's the other game's grappler. He has a friendly rivalry with Geef now. And he's actually the bodyguard of Paloon Perna, who's technically Arabian Knight Cammy White. I do not understand it or get it. Is that a lot of things that Paloon does in this game is stuff that Cammy would get in later games and stuff. Like, you know, air cannon drills and like, you know, and stuff like that. So, you know, just know. The Master of the Fist, Akuma. Yeah, Akuma? Yeah, there are things that are happening with Akuma that I'm about to explain in a second. So, you know, I'll let you know. Is that because, again, that this is a game that takes the place of Street Fighter Alpha and canon, is that right now he's trying to, you know, he's starting his way to trying to get Ryu to come to the dark side. You are your father and such. Bison. Bison, and again, because this is a game that takes the place of Street Fighter Alpha, he's super buff Bison right now. He got all the superpowers, and this gets crazier in future games because they give him more forms, more supers. It's that I have to sit up here and say that Street Fighter EX and the way that Arca really treated Bison, they did him a service. I will say that, especially in Street Fighter EX2 and EX3 with his super forms and stuff. But we'll talk about that when we actually talk about Street Fighter EX2 and 3. Garada. Now, once upon a time, I remember understanding that Garada was actually another character in Street Fighter EX2 named, what is that boy named Hayate? But that's not true. Garada is actually the realization of every soul that has been killed by some user of the Satsui no Hado, which I do not understand canonically at all. But, you know, it's a thing. And, you know, Garada has beef with Akuma, and, you know, he's the reason why Akuma doesn't appear in another Street Fighter EX game. Because I originally thought and I originally understood the canon was the reason why Kairi goes under the transformation he does in later games because he kills Akuma, and now I've learned that's not true. So, of course, we're learning something. Evil Ryu. Now, when it comes to the next 4 characters I'm about to talk about, all 4 of these characters were characters that were added in the arcade mode of Street Fighter EX Plus. So, you know, Evil Ryu is pretty much Ryu, Evil Ryu from Street Fighter Alpha 2. Down to the move list, actually, yes, down to the move list. Yeah, down to the move list, because I was sitting up here thinking about his move list. Yeah, down to the move list, Evil Ryu is Evil Ryu from Street Fighter Alpha 2. Even has the Shun Goku Sasuke ready. For some reason, so does Sakura. Because if my math is correct, this will be the first game she had the Shungoku Sasuen, and then she would get it as, in the move in Project Justice. So, you know. Not Project Justice, Rival Schools. Project Justice is a sequel. Rival Schools. Let's keep focused. Blood Release Hokuto. Now, see, here's more of that family drama business. Is that when Hokuto gets anywhere near Kairi, she goes into this blood release mode where the only thing she knows is to kill. This version of Hokuto is the only time where this Hokuto is actually playable. In Street Fighter EX3, she gets a super move that transfers her into this mode, and then, you know, just to spoil a fun fact, is that that version of Hokuto is actually Kairi's Medio tag partner. So I figured you might want to know that information too. You have Cycloid Beta and Cycloid Gamma. Now, with Cycloid Beta and Cycloid Gamma, they are the Doral of this game, because what each Cycloid gets is that they get a move list based off certain moves from other characters, but what happens is that the game mixes up different hit properties in ways that cancel work and things like that to make them enough different so that you want to experiment and play with them. The thing that's kind of weird is that even Ryu, Blood Release Hokuto, and neither of the Cycloids don't have trial mode, which would have been cool because I really would have liked to see how Cycloid Beta and Cycloid Gamma work with their different hit properties and such. But it's still fun to, you know, just to kick around and kill with them anyway. And now I've explained to you all of these guys' characters. So let's review real quick. This dude's Balrog. This dude had his whole crew killed by a character that they only mentioned in passing twice during the whole series. This is Arabian Night Cammy. We'll never see her again or him again in a Street Fighter EX game, but we'll see their moves in a later game, and then they're featured in a different game, which I don't think I should talk about now, but hopefully be able to review later. These guys have boss modes that you can also unlock in expert mode. The differences being, the only major difference is that all three of the boss forms for Akuma, Bison, and Garda get defense and attack boost. Garda gets a special move called the Moboroshi, is that it's the counter that if you press punch while you're being hit, he disappears and then hits him with his spiky head. Now this is the move he only gets as a CPU playable character in all three games of the series. So this is the only time where CPU Garda is actually legitimately playable without the use of a cheat device. So there's that. So with that being said, how about we learn how to play this game? And I guess we can pick players in Skullomania because we'll never see Blair again, technically, and I love Amusement of Crime because it's one of my favorite music tracks in all the video games. This is Street Fighter. There's not a lot to show you guys today, because what I've come to understand is that, and I think this is the perfect place to really talk about it, because I talked about it earlier in the review about how expert mode made me really understand what Street Fighter EX is about. Because here's a fun fact. Did you know the EX in Street Fighter EX? It stands for exquisite. And trust me, there is a lot of exquisite to be seen in this game and future games as we'll talk about it. But just understand this for now. Like I said earlier, this game came out in 1996. Street Fighter EX, the first one, came out in 96. Street Fighter 2 came out in 91. All of its revisions up to Super Turbo is that it got to a point to where, and I talked about this when I actually took a look at Darkstalkers, is that Street Fighter had gotten to a point to where it boxed itself into a wall, so that it had to diverge into games like Darkstalkers, into the Street Fighter Alpha series, and even Street Fighter EX. Street Fighter Alpha, you know, really took after the anime. Dude, we took after the animated movie and stuff like that by trying to bring a different flow by using Darkstalkers to, you know, to field test air blocking and chains and things like that. Street Fighter EX, and in the awesome mind of Akira Nishitani, thought this, and this is just my assumption, is that people who have played Street Fighter for hella need a game to open them up and challenge them. Street Fighter EX as a series is a game that does that successfully. Is that in this game, you have to understand, like I say, that you have to really understand advanced tactics. because Street Fighter 2 was a game that you really didn't need to understand the advanced tactics to have a good time. In this game, you can play Street Fighter 2 with Street Fighter EX all you want to. You're not going to get very far. Because this game expects a lot of the player. Like I said, it expects you to understand about hitboxes and crossovers and negative edging and cancels and how things work, because things in this game are tight. Canceling motion, like, let me show you. Like, I just tried to do a super cancel there, as you see, and it just did not come out because I mistimed it. Do too many lows, it won't come. You know what I'm saying? Do too many lows, nothing will come out. And that's just an example. Is that this game expects you to sit down and get intimate with it. For you to really understand how the character you play work within the confines of Street Fighter EX gives. So let's try that combo one more time. One more. Look at all them super camps, because that's something that Street Fighter EX brought to the table. Is that what you just saw me do was what's called a level 3 super cancel combo. And this is actually key for fighting one of the hidden bosses in arcade mode, but you'll have to Google that on your own. Is that one thing that this game majorly introduced was super cancels into canceling supers again. This is not something we would see in a mainline anything Capcom game until I wanna say, do I wanna say Star Gladiator? Or more, cause I'm leaning towards, cause I know Star Gladiator has super cancels in it, but Marvel vs. Capcom had the delay hyper combo, so you know I'm not really sure. But just know Street Fighter EX did it first. Just know that regardless of the time frame or whatever, Street Fighter EX did the super cancel thing first. And I mean super cancels in the supers, because while we all know that Art of Fighting did the desperation move first, I really don't think super cancels from specials to supers was a thing to Super Turbo. You know, and then Darkstalkers would do it a little bit after Super Turbo would, stuff like that. The point I am trying to make here is this. Remember, 5 years ago, I took a look at Street Fighter 4 and everything that it did, and it was so awesome. And it was that as I learned to grow and to learn to find my own identity in video games, I understood how much I enjoy playing Street Fighter EX more. Because here's the thing about me. I enjoy games that do things they should not supposed to. It's why I love NBA Jam, NBA Hang Time, and NFL Blitz so much, because I can't stand to play basketball game stamps. Can't stand them. But put me in front of NBA Jam, NBA Hang Time, NBA Showtime, NFL Blitz, put me in front of it, I'm going to have a good time, because it throws everything conventional out the damn window, and all it wants to do is have fun. Street Fighter EX, the series, does this in a different way because of challenging the player. Because Street Fighter EX doesn't pretend that the person playing it is stupid. It's that Street Fighter EX expects you to understand all of this stuff that you have been learning up to this point playing Street Fighter 2 for the last 5 years. And it puts it into this box. In this box of bosses that you now get to open. Street Fighter EX plus Alpha in the third revision, because there's Street Fighter EX, Street Fighter EX Plus in this game. For a game that is the final revision, it lays the foundation for what I will say is probably my favorite Street Fighter game is Street Fighter EX Plus. Is that, like I said, I understand why people are hung about this game, because, like I said, that this game does not take prisoners or pretend that you are stupid. It expects you to understand a whole lot about high-level Street Fighter playing. And that was probably, and that's the thing that I remember hearing a lot of people say a long time ago about why they didn't like Street Fighter, because it didn't have that same feel. And I understand now what they define as that same feel is that the feel of easing you in and you learning versus a game that expects you to understand everything that it does. Street Fighter EX Plus Alpha is probably the best way to enjoy this first game, because you can emulate Street Fighter EX and Street Fighter EX Plus, but this is arcade perfect. Actually better than arcade perfect, because a lot of the arcade code is actually hidden in the CD. You can go look that up on Google on your own time. If I'm going to give Street Fighter EX a score, I'll give it an 8.5 out of 10. That through my trying to play this game for the last week and a half and take all of my notes and learn about this game intimately so I can be honest, is that I will say this. I take back nothing that I have ever said about this game one way or another. When I wrote what I wrote about Street Fighter EX and why it's awesome, nothing's changed about that. The only thing that has changed about my mindset about this game is that I understand it from the other side of the fence. Is that I truly understand it by sitting up here playing it and playing trial mode and really getting to the gritty and getting to the heart of what this game does and what it did for being the thesis and antithesis for Street Fighter 4 is be a game that is unapologetic for being, if you suck at me, you suck at me. Get fucking better. That's what this game does. No apology. Is that if you suck at me, go back to the lab and get better. There are no ultra combos. There is no, well, if you sneak in this, no. If you frames off, then your combo is going to miss. You need to learn how to super cancel that shit better, dog. That's what I love about Street Fighter EX, the whole series, is that this game is unapologetic and wanting you to understand that if you're not ready for me, go play something else. And when you're done playing something else and you think you're ready to play me, come back. This only is going to get more crazier when we talk about Street Fighter EX 2 Plus next time. Now, I think I'm about done. Now, was there anything else that I missed before we get out of here? Yeah, I did. Even though I did pick Blair, is that there are a couple of regional differences. Mainly being that, you know, characters that cut. Those the only two characters in the game doing that in Street Fighter EX Plus Alpha are Garuda and actually Doctor and Dark. And actually Doctor and Dark in the American version has his throw where he cuts you with the garrote wire. He only has the same throw now in this version. In the Japanese version of the home port, they took that throw out too. But I think he gets that throwback in subsequent games, but none of the American versions bleed when he does it. And I just wanted to make sure that I got that out there. This game gets an 8 out of 10. If you really want to understand why Street Fighter EX 2 Plus is the game it is, take a couple hours, come to this game, play the trial mode, understand that the game wants you to understand some advanced shit getting into it, and you will really learn a lot. Because I have learned one magical thing about playing expert mode. My execution after all these years is still ass. Part of it may be that I need to sit down my old Tekken 5 stick. That may be part of it. Some of it may also be is that execution has always been one of my weak points when it comes to playing fighting games, and I'm not scared to admit that. That I'm good, but I am not at the level that I want to be. Is that I understand high-level fighting gameplay better than anybody else in the business, and you guys have seen that that's stated fact. My hands don't match up with my brain when it comes to understanding. Is that I can look at, see, and understand why shit is supposed to happen that way, but trying to actually execute it, you know, is a whole different thing. But I'm glad that I was able to get this out today because I love this series so much, and I really love it. And like I said, and I'm not scared to say that if I'm gonna sit up here and I'm gonna choose a Street Fighter to stand by, it's the Street Fighter EX series. It's because, like I said earlier, this game is unapologetic, and I can respect a game that is unapologetic. That's why I love Virtual Fighter so much. Is that I love fighting games in varying ways, but I love Street Fighter EX because I love its unapologetic nature of understanding if you suck, get better. Not if you suck, mash buttons. If you suck, get beat up, build up an ultra. If you suck, press a button and maybe something will happen. No, if you suck, go work on yourself. And I will admit that Street Fighter EX does that to me. All 3 games in the series are like, let's introduce you. Let's start off by building a block with knowing that you need some expert thought to win. Let's add to that. Let's give you more to work with. And trust me, when we take a look at Street Fighter EX2 Plus, it's going to be a whole lot more to work with. And it's going to be a whole lot more than understanding that the only thing you need to know is if you press any combination of low punch, low kick, medium punch, medium kick, or high punch, high kick, is that you get a guard break. And it lets you do stuff like that. Bink, bink, bink. Purchase me. Thank you. Leg, neck. I'm getting broke. I'd like to take this time to also say adieu to Miss Blair Damon and Alan Snyder, who is a weird Shoto with no hurricane kick. You know, I always thought people hated this game because hurricane kicks are treated like reckless. Nah. People don't like this game because, you know, people want to suck at stuff and want the game to be nice. No, Street Fighter EX is unapologetic, and I respect it for being unapologetic, and that's why I love it as a series. 8 out of 10, like I said. Street Fighter EX2 Plus is up next. Expect that whenever it comes out. The cool. Every Monday. You never know what was going to be going down on this channel or DOAGS the Dojo. Be sure to stay tuned. With that being said, I am of course the one and only Triple G.O.D. The best in the business, the best in existence, the best in the world, the best in the universe, the best or any of this or any dimension or just existence period. This is Diary of a Game Whore. Welcome to Yelp for the Street Fighter EX. I'll holler at you guys next time, man. Peace out.